extra today that I don't usually have, and this is a little Bluetooth enabled dongle that facilitates your use of the Torq Trac app. We're going to get into what this does for you, but I'm just going to connect it here to the data cable that goes to the throttle, and we'll get underway. I'll show you what that's all about here in a moment. Alright, I got my throttle powered up here, and we'll go ahead and drop that motor down and wake her up. Alright, the app there, Torq Trac app, is free, but the you got to buy the dongle is what it's called, and you know, it just pigtails onto your data cable that comes off of the throttle. And what I'm gonna do is actually log a trip. Let's see if I can hit that bottom button. And I'm actually gonna run up that creek a good ways today. So we're gonna hit play, which starts it, and you can tell that it basically initiates a trip for you. So let's get moving a little bit. And what I'm looking to accomplish here is to really know how far I end up going over the course of a day. It's got me moving. Of course, it's got it in knots, which I think I can change that here in a little bit, but you get the concept. It's, as you're moving, it's giving you some data, how fast you're going, the distance you've covered, and the remaining range you have in the battery. But we'll come back to this as we go through the course of the day. I'm gonna use 2 batteries. Maybe I won't get into the second one, but we'll see. I'm gonna run up this creek a good ways. I got sort of a late start. It's almost 10 o'clock, so I should actually fish around here a little bit before I go much further. But I just wanted to show what the Torq Trac can do for you in terms of familiarizing yourself with what distances that you can cover in a day, and to budget your power accordingly. And we'll talk more about it at the end of the day, but basically most people, when they're new to Torqeedo, using the range knowledge that it gives you, fall under 2 camps. One is too conservative, 2 is haven't figured out that there is a really nice cruising speed for every day, and helping people find that cruising speed and not either being too aggressive or too conservative and ending the day with like lots of power left. This is a tool. The Torq Trac is a tool that can help you learn that and get there quicker than you can just with experience. So we'll revisit it, but I'm gonna chuck a crankbait around here in the this creek mouth a little bit before I go anywhere else. See if we can catch some smallmouth. On the bridge pilots. So current speed and variations in it, like where your speed goes from screaming fast to dead stop. So that transition is important. It creates a spot where they can hang back in that calm water, and there you are. Just wait for things to wash past them. That's where this guy was. He was in the calm water. Behind that calm water. this crustacean to sweep in front of them. So, good first catch. Beautiful animal. Maybe we'll get him back in and keep heading upstream. I do want to cover some distance today and not just sit here at the mouth and catch these guys, even though I know they're here. So we'll do some exploration. See you later. So I threw out the wood at the head of this bridge piling, and you're gonna hang up crankbaits on wood if you're throwing at them the way that you ought to, and the plug knocker helps me get them back. So, rather than sticking your rod down there, just bouncing that lead weight up and down on them is a much better way to go. Here it comes. Okay, got it back. Let's move away from this wood, find some bank wood. I'm glad I got my crankbait back. Works about 90% of the time. Well worth making a mess of the plug knockers. They're very useful tools. Alright, caught a couple here near the bridge, starting to head up the creek here, and you know, we're at 96%, which is your top number is your the remaining battery percentage. The next one at, what was it, 12.9, 13 mile an hour. There's no way I'm gonna, with one battery, need to run up 13 miles and come back 13 for a total of 26. I don't have that kind of time today at 10:15 in the morning. So we're gonna pick up the pace here and get some speed behind us. I think somewhere in that, you know, 5 mile an hour remaining range is good to go up, you know, say 10 miles, because I got 2 batteries, and get up there relatively quickly. It's, you know, it's something that at 3.5 mile an hour, I'll be up there in not a whole lot of time. So I may back off a little bit so I can, you know, where I see good targets, good woody targets on the bank, that I can chuck the crankbait at them. But for the most part, I'm going to stay in this, you know, this sort of bottom watt draw, like 550 watts is a nice cruising speed, and then I'll throttle back as I see targets that look good, good log jams, anything like that. Snagged up. Snags are so much easier to deal with this tool. 105 pounds of thrust on a kayak. Get you up to that snag real quick. Let's do full throttle. To 550. That's a good one. See if I can keep his butt. He's grabbing that current pretty good. He's a good fish. Drifted into the shoreline here. This is just one of those spots that you look at and you're like, yeah, I need to slow down and put a cast on that for sure. One hook in him. Get him under the net. twisted him in there. He is off the crankbait. So we have had some rain in the last 36 hours, some significant rain, and you can see it in this creek. I checked the stream flow gauge before I left, late last night, and then again this morning before I left, and I can see it out here in the water clarity in particular, and I like the little bit of turbidity that we have on this side. You see out here, it's nice and green and clean. You come over to this side, and this is actually the sort of browner water that I caught that first one. These sort of shoreline eddies where it's kind of mixed, you know, between the clean and green, and then the brown is good water to target for sure. In fact, I'm gonna throttle back here and pick up the rod here, get a couple casts before I advance up through that rapid. Yeah, a little bit of turbidity on this side as well. Not as much as the opposite shore, but you know, it's still the kind of thing where they like to ambush, you know, shooting from that muddy water out into that clean to grab something to eat. On top of that, you have the current gradient from calm water to moving water, really moving water. Great place for these fish to set up and pound something. So this is a good example of the kind of place where you're going to leave the 550 watts behind, and yeah, ease up to it. But once you're in that fast-moving water, you're going to want to go full throttle into that stuff. Just to advance up there. The only limiting factor is really the water depth. And I think I got enough here. Just in case, I got the paddle ready to give it the assist that it needs. This is 550 watts. Let's muscle up. That's 1100 watts. That doubled it. And I'll give it a little boost. Most of the way up. I'm gonna back off the hair. I see some nice looking targets on this side. See if I get a little bit of spinnerbait action going. I think I've been throwing it without a trailer, but I think I'm gonna put a trailer on there. Not so much because it needs to be a bigger profile for these fish, or it needs that tail action. The reason I'm putting the diesel minnow on there, and I've had one hit it and just leave it alone. I think sometimes when they hit it and you have something soft on there, it just feels right. You know, these minnows that they're wanting to eat, they're not just hard like at Leadhead. They've got some softness to them, and for sure that Aztec, that it's the shorter diesel minnow, it's the 4-incher. Could make the difference in this twin spin and having a fish actually come back for a second swipe at it. Right. Oh, gosh, that's a big fish. Oh, hope he stays on. I got that spinnerbait directly under that log and kind of folded it, like swung the rod tip to one side so it'd really bang into it good. Oh, that's a good spinnerbait fish. Let's look at where this nice fish was hanging out. We're gonna drift by and I'm gonna let him breathe. But that fish was on the upstream side of that big root ball. So nice, chunky Pennsylvania brown creek bass. Beautiful. All right, let's do a little update. Hopefully I get the glare off of that so we can see what I've done. A little bit of distance up the creek. Let's see, bottom right says I'm at 2.4 miles and I've used 30% of the battery. So I'm at 70% there. So I probably could stand to pick up the pace a little bit. Let's get moving. So I've advanced up in that eddy instead of coming right up the middle where there's a lot of strong current. And in doing so, I conserve energy until I get right up to the current seam, and then I can punch it up through there. I'm going to try and replicate what I just did at the other spot. I'm going to cast it to the upstream side, and then I'm going to swing my rod tip to really run the spinnerbait into it. It's in there, and then I'm really turning it to the right for maximum collision. Tell you, if you're not snagging these in these log jams every once in a while, you're not doing your job with that spinnerbait. You've got to try and lose it, and that's why I like the twin spins. The two arms allow you to have that maximum collision and get it back cleanly a greater percentage of the time. So I've made it as far as I think I can with the motor down. I'm gonna hop out, drag up through here, and I think once I'm right up there, I can keep moving. It's important to get your rods facing back when you do this. My rods that are in the Yak Attack Omega and Omega Pro rods are already pointed back. I'm just going to take the one that was in my hand and tuck that in. You're going to have your back to where your rods are, and these branches will get you. They will snap a rod. So one thing I did there halfway up is I let out a length of anchor line, and that basically gives me a longer leash to drag it, which ergonomically is just, it's more comfortable. It's just an easier way to drag things as opposed to scooped over, holding on to a shorter leash. That longer leash makes for an easy drag. So I'm immediately upstream from where I had to walk up through, and I moved into this area and I started spooking some carp, and I was thinking, all right, let's just keep moving, and then I saw 5 or 6 big smallmouth. So mental note, that house, this side of the river, they're in it. They're in this region. I see one in front of me. It's probably 19-inch fish. Yeah, that's a good fish. So, you know, this is what it means to head upstream at some kind of speed and get a preview. You know, I'm gonna catch a good fish or two out of this spot on the way back through later this afternoon. That's a big smallmouth. Loosen the drag. Oh, he's off. On and off. That was way more than 20 inches. Can't believe I lost him. Is that a nice one? They like the crankbait. Let's see if I can avoid losing this guy. I just lost one that was just a giant, really a big fish. This one's not that, but he's a nice fish. A bunch of them in this little area, and thought I would just throw soft plastic right on the outside of the current seam, let it kind of drift down in there, drift past, pick that guy up. So I drifted the soft plastic jerk bait and let it tumble right down along here. I'm staying on this side of the current. This is the jerk bait I was using. Redfish toad. It's the smaller of the two that I throw, and gave it a little scent there with the liquid mayhem. That's a good one. That's a healthy adult smallmouth bass. Ooh. Hello. That's a great fish. I've loosened the drag, which I think is important. Keep these guys buttoned. Oh, I gotta get him out of my motor though, away from it. Great fish. Yeah, one hook in him. I think I can get him now. I can get this fish in the net. I don't lose him like I did the other nice. Ooh. Yeah, that's a good fish. Look at that beautiful creek smallmouth. Get him back in right away. See you later, guy. So that was a great area with a lot of fish in it, and like I said, I'm gonna hit that on the way back downstream But one thing that was a good marker for, hey, that is a good hole for a creek, is it had some depth. It had areas where, you saw a lot of carp, a lot of other fish. I saw catfish in there. I saw obviously a lot of smallmouth, the buffalo carp, just all kinds of stuff in there. And when you see an aggregation of lots of fish in that deeper water, in a smaller body of water, that's an indicator of it offers a lot at a variety of river levels, that those top tier predator fish like the smallmouth like to hang out. So there's a whole lot of skinny, and I'm going to say marginal water, but I like to refer to them as our nurseries, where our smaller fish, our fish that are 12 inches and less, are in abundance, for sure most of the spring and summer. We're going to move through those areas, and I'm going to be constantly scanning and looking for big fish. And when I start seeing another, if I see obviously big smallmouth, but carp, or catfish, or the quillbacks, or whatever it is in great concentrations, I'm going to slow down. But right now, I checked it a minute ago, and I think I'm up between 5 and 6 miles on the odometer, so to speak, and I'm at 33%. And I still have another battery to use. I don't think I'm going to get very deep into the second battery, if I do at all. It's just nice to have it. It doesn't make sense to keep pushing and keep pushing when you've figured out, okay, this is the type of area that I want to find, and I found one really good one. I'm going to find others if I keep moving up. And when I find them, slow down, fish them, pick them apart a little bit. But I'm going to keep moving until I see that again. So let's keep scooting. So when you're using a bait like a crankbait that has a whole lot of just constant collision, you have got to be in the habit every hour or two, is good, to cut it off and retie. If you don't do that, you're setting yourself up. You use the same knot all day because you just keep catching fish. If you don't retie, you're gonna lose a giant someday, and you'll think back and say, yep, I knew the last couple inches of line there was beat up. I should have retied. Just get into the habit. Fishing line is a relatively inexpensive part of what we do. The expensive part is usually the filling up the gas tank and driving to some of the cool places we go to, And I think where we shortchange ourselves is totally in, when we do that, it's like, I'm in a rush. I have fish right here, or at least you think there are, or even if there are, they're probably not catching a cab and leaving. They're gonna be there. Just take a minute, retie, and don't lose that next giant, that big fish, that next personal best. Retie your crankbaits frequently. It's sort of tricky figuring out where's the deepest water. It definitely gets shallow and flat over there. That's a pretty big lip on this side, but I think this middle chute here might be deep enough to keep my prop going. But I'm going to get really close to this rock in order to maintain that depth. And having the paddle in your hand it's a good idea just in case you do start grinding, you're already in the right position to power up manually. But I think I'm good. Time to put down the paddle, pick up the rod, and catch a smallmouth. There. So I'm at that next spot where you look around and you see carp and catfish and big smallmouth. The only problem is with this crankbait, I can't move it more than 8 or 9 feet, and it's got grass all over it. And I don't mean the skirt. I don't know if you've all seen the video where I show how to put the skirt on there. That I think it looks like where their claws tuck up underneath them and ride, you know, in their undercarriage, so to speak. I finally got one of these fish that I've been watching in this pool. It's got a lot of them, but man, are they just really clear water. They're just sitting there watching me as I'm watching them. And this is the first one I got to eat. I really had to slow it down and finesse it to get anything to happen. And this one I put all the way under a log with the larger size scented jerk shad and Houdini. So we'll get this guy back in there. Anyway, thank you for finally giving me some action in here. They're laying out in the open in between these little patches of grass, and some on the wood, but there's not a ton of wood out here. But it's clear. It's very clear water. Yeah, I think I can still see him. I got a muskie that's cruising around me. That's right there. Here he goes. Oh, big smallmouth right behind him. Oh, this is amazing. There's like 3 big ones. I'm hooked into one. And I got the second biggest of the lot. Trying to lead him back over this way. His buddies have, at this point, left him to fight or eat whatever he's got. Actually, there was 4 of them total. It's very cool to watch him do that. Hi, fishy. I'll get you loose here in a second. Just let me scoop you. Just scoop you and I'll put you back. And show you to everyone how beautiful you are. And now you go back. So that was, yeah, it was another current scene. Just back on the medium diving crankbait. It's my most reliable producer so far. All right, so I've made it up as far as I think I'm going to today. It's almost 5 o'clock, and you know, I got a decent distance to get back downstream. Let's take a look at where I'm at with my battery percentage on the first one. Looks like I'm right at 11%. So whatever distance we have on the TorqTrac app, and it looks like we are at 7.8 miles as measured on the TorqTrac app. So even if you're just using one battery, you know, you've basically set it yourself up for an 8-mile float trip, which normally, you know, you'd put in above and float down, but that's not what I'm doing today. So 7.8 miles in one direction. We'll keep this running to see what kind of distance we're going to have for the whole day. But I am going to switch batteries over because I'm not just going to do the normal float trip back down to my vehicle. I found 2 places that I'm really excited about that I want to be at when it gets later in the day, and you know, I know I've identified 2 places where there's a bunch of big fish. So I'm gonna switch over to that second battery, get back down to those spots very quickly, and you know, put the crank on them. See if I can get those bigs to bite again. So you got a couple different screens you can use with the Torq Trac. This one that I have selected is the trip log. This one in the center, and it does it very briefly. You click on that and it shows you a circle of where you can go. In other words, what your remaining range looks like on the map. The one on the left here is actually your speed, your watt draw here on the left. A lot of the stuff that you can see, you know, on the throttle itself, but gives you some extras, like your trip so far is at 9.3 miles, and your remaining range at this speed 5.3 miles, which, you know, I got for sure more than that. So I'll back off here in a little bit from the 742 watts. Or the remaining range is in 53 minutes. So just a couple different ways to show you, you know, your data, what you got going with the current battery that you're utilizing right now. Right now I'm at 88% and 6.9 mile per hour. I know that's not a point, that's a comma, but that's some German stuff for you. I like using commas instead of decimals. Whatever, they come up with some cool stuff. We're coming in to the second spot, and I got some shallow water in between me and where that is, and thought I would go ahead and slow down, approach the area quietly, not throw a big wake on them. Somewhere up in this area, and I've got the motor up, so there is some shallow water. I really don't want to bang my way through it. I don't want to announce my arrival, and being able to float into place in this inflatable that will not spook the fish is important. But with the motor down, it would grind and bang. So get into position. So no takers on the first pass. It is highly likely that I fish better upstream than downstream. We'll see. I am gonna go back up and pick that one apart with some soft plastics, because man, there were at least 3 of them in there that I know that were just giants. Yep, that's a little one. Yep, I'm on the small fish pod. All right. 2 smaller fish. There were a bunch of huge ones earlier. I'm gonna give it one more pass, but I'm staying further out, hoping that they moved more mid-river. We'll see. Oh, on off. So I moved to the opposite shore and I found them. And I found one, and I imagine they're all sort of jammed in here. There's one of them. Ah, he's off. Dang it. That one feels good. Some big head shakes. And I'm loosening that drag. Good fish. Very good fish. Finally. Come on. I was looking for you. Where'd you hide? Don't hide from me. It's not nice. Not nice. Oh. Mid-river. Mid-river. Oh yeah. I'm gonna keep you buttoned. Keep you on. I'm gonna lead you upstream. Come on now. Get in my... Yes. All right. Choking the crank. I like that craw. That craw is tasty. All right. I'm running out of daylight. Time to get back downstream. See you later, guy. Come on, get on this side. Here, little guy. You know, as soon as I find him, I can't leave him alone. Get off. Get off. Where's your big sister? So I'm guessing that we're going to end somewhere around 16 miles, 8 miles up, 8 miles back. It's not really the way it went down in terms of, is it really 8 river miles? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of zigging and zagging. We'll see. It's sort of dependent on the stream flow, what you can pull off in terms of going up. I think if I were to try this in the summertime, I'd be out of the kayak a lot more than I was today. Today we've had, you know, it's springtime, there's good flow. We had some rain a couple days ago that bumped it up. You know, that puts more water in the creek and it makes it so you got to work harder to get up, but there are fewer places that you actually have to get out and drag it. I really only had to do it in one place where I just had to get out and drag it up and over. So that's pretty good. That's, you know, that makes for a fun day. But we'll get to the end here. I will check the progress on the Torq Trac app when it's final, when we're totally done. We'll see what it ends up. Regardless, it's been a fun day out here. All right, let's take a look, see how many we got. All right, we've gone all the way up, all the way back. The average speed is 2.6 mile per hour. That's important to plan your next trip. That's a very useful number. It helps you determine what kind of watt usage you can use and what your effective working range can be for the number of hours that you have to be out. Go ahead and hit stop, and that will finish the trip, and I will have that reference point for future trips.